Hello and welcome once again to the Speaker, a video podcast with Speaker Charles McCall. Mr. Speaker, good afternoon.
Hey, Scott, great to be with you here in the last month of session.
It sure is. And we have the accompanying May weather and May nerves, and people just, there's a little anxiety in May. It's end of the session. Can I just put out a theory? Disagree with me if you'd like. I just taped my weekend shows. I have a feeling that it's palpable across our state right now that the public is thoroughly confused about what is happening with the reform package. There are many viewpoints, including Democrats. It's moving very fast. It appears to me, outside of two or three reporters, that folks are having a difficult time keeping up with it. So I'm just going to come back to back to first base here. Help us understand where you think we are
Mhm.
and where you think we're going. How's that for a simple question this week?
Hey, Scott, you bet. And so we have spent a lot of time on education this year, and a package that we can try to, advance choice and options for all students and parents throughout the state, as well as make sure that we have a record level high of funding for public education, no matter what a parent's choice is in terms of the path that they follow. Um, and so, right, so far, I mean, this year there's just been a lot of back and forth volleying of volleys of the House. Originally sent its House plan over to the Senate. The Senate sat on it for about 6 weeks. Ended up amending it and really scrapping the House plan and putting a Senate plan back in and sending that back to the House. We rejected that initial plan. Did not think that would meet. It just did not accomplish a win for every student, parent, school, and teacher in the state of Oklahoma. So we rejected it. Um, we've gone through a round of negotiations, several negotiations. A plan emerged from Governor Stitt, which took some bits and pieces of both the House and Senate's plan into a compromise plan, and the House has moved it out of conference committee. It can be signed out and taken and voted on the floor anytime now. Um, and the Senate additionally just did gut a couple of House bills last week and drop another one of their plans into it to send back to the House without any negotiations, without any discussions. And and so we did look at that. And the education package, they sent over a tax credit and a public education funding piece. The public education funding piece turned out to be an $813 million spend, but they only sent $500 million worth of funding with it. So we had to reject it. That would have caused a cut to education, basically uh, mandating $813 million of spend with only $500 million of money behind it. The tax credit piece that they sent over, we went ahead and passed that in the House this week, and then but we did capture that bill for reconsideration if necessary. And so for the House, so I would say overall we're making progress. Everybody, the House, the governor, we want um, we want a plan to and we want a funding package this session. We're working towards that. And I believe the Senate does as well. And so I do think we're going to get there. We do have a tax credit piece that has passed both the Senate and the House. And we are holding that on reconsideration until the public education piece comes together. And so we're now focused on that. And as soon as we reach an agreement on that, all of it is poised to go to the governor's desk, and we'll wrap up a budget and call it a great session.
There are so many things that we're seeing and reading about. Um, and then the holding the bill for consideration. Can you explain why that you're holding this bill for consideration? That's perhaps the question I'm hearing the most from people this week.
Yeah, so we're holding it. We have, the House has been very transparent and forthright from the very beginning of session that its education plan, the public education funding mechanism, would be coupled and tied with the tax credit, and that the only way that all of our members in our caucus, or the vast majority, would pass the package completely, but not in pieces. The Senate has chosen to decouple those from one another in its last maneuver in sending the House uh, new plans to consider. Um, so, because those bills were decoupled and the public education piece had a big underfunding flaw in it, among other things in the bill, they were repealing some merit pay, bonus pay structures that we had already passed and funded in previous legislations. There were multiple problems with the bill. We had to capture the credit bill after passage for reconsideration to guarantee that the public ed piece would be following for the tax credit piece to move forward to the governor's desk.
And last, as part of the people talking about off ramps and how you're going to get to some sort of resolution to get everybody in agreement, which it has to do, there's been some discussion. The media's picked up on this one quite a bit, which is the Senate and I think the superintendent have said, let's have these public hearings, have these public negotiations. I'm not sure how that works. It'd be good for ratings, but I'm wondering how effective it would be in trying to get to a resolution outside of like cameras in the courtroom. Could you help us out on that one?
Yeah, it would. In my opinion, it's just more political theater. We just need to. We are not very far apart in getting a deal done. There's definitely a willingness on the House's part. I mean, Scott, we have considered everything that the Senate has sent us, yet, but the Senate has not taken a vote on the House plan or even the governor's compromise plan. Um, I believe if the Senate would just take up the governor's plan, put it to a vote of their members, this thing would pass. It would be over with. We could all move forward.
That's an interesting question. If I could just delay the end of this for one quick question, you really believe that if the thing were put up on the House on the Senate floor, that it would pass? That's an astounding something I hadn't heard before. I think.
I think it will at this point. The tax credit's already passed. It's sitting here ready to be delivered to the governor. It is the Senate's tax credit plan, not the House's. And so why wouldn't they take up the funding plan of the governors for public education? It's actually more robust than the House plan initially was, sending $600 million to public education, and that being guaranteed going forward in order for the tax credit to stay viable and authorized from year to year. So that's the piece that's missing right now. We have to find a way to send some additional dollars to rural schools with this tax credit approach, because the tax credit can't really be utilized in the rural parts of the state. There's not really a lot of options for kids in the rural parts of the state for alternatives outside of public education. So we must find a way to push additional dollars to rural public schools to make sure those kids that attend those schools have additional resources for more innovation and more educational opportunities.
So I'll put you down as mildly optimistic this week.
I'm always optimistic. I think we're gonna get a deal and a package and move forward. We just need, once again, it is compromised. The House has moved on all of its positions, whether it's tax credits, whether it's how we pay the teachers the pay raise, how much money we run through the formula. It's just the one mechanism that we have not budged on is the mechanism to get additional dollars out to the rural schools, which is a very, very small piece of the overall education funding for the state of Oklahoma, which so I don't think it's hard to get there at all.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you for your time and best of luck next week.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you.